This is the 35th year of a harsh, brutal, and vicious occupation, supported unilaterally by the United States, constant terror and atrocities. Suppose Palestinians say, well, we're under terrorist attack for 35 years, therefore we have a right to carry out suicide bombings.
Which is what they say.
Do you accept this? Does anybody accept it?
Nobody accepts it.
All right, then how come everyone accepts the Israeli claim to be doing it, which is a much weaker claim? Because after all, there's no symmetry in this situation. They are the military occupiers. Palestine isn't occupying Israel. And this isn't just started now. It's gone on years ago. I mean...
So does that, in your mind, justify...
No, it does not. Of course not. It doesn't in anybody's mind.
It invalidates both sides.
Those who defend suicide bombing, and there are very few, don't have a leg to stand on. Those who defend the Israeli atrocities, including the U.S. government, most intellectual opinion, a good bit of the West generally, yeah, they don't have a leg to stand on either, and they have a much weaker position. For 35 years, there has been a harsh, brutal, miserable military occupation. There has not been a political settlement. The reason why there has not been a political settlement is that the United States unilaterally has blocked it for 25 years. Is it supported by the entire world, including the majority of the American people? The answer to that question is yes. There is a political settlement that has been supported by virtually the entire world, including the Arab states, the PLO, Europe, Eastern Europe, Canada.
Didn't Barack put that on the table?
No, he did not.
He did not.
That is also supported by the majority of the American people. It has just been reiterated by Saudi Arabia. The U.S. has unilaterally blocked it.
I'd recommend that full.
So this is a bit long, but you'll see how desperately Owen tries to get through here, and just how there's absolutely no way to penetrate.
Your experiences of it does bring it to life, what some of those horrors are that we've seen. Do you share that fear that things are going to get worse before they get better?
Yes, of course, and obviously firstly it's so important to share the disgust and horror at what happened. I was at a rave on Saturday with my friend who's an Israeli citizen, and I was with him as he took a call from his family. His niece escaped that rave. Two of her friends were kidnapped and are now being held hostage by Hamas. There's no cause on earth which justifies the slaughter of innocent civilians, and the horror and disgust is raw with so many people, and the anguish of what those left behind are going for is indescribable. Obviously my concern about what happens next is partly informed by what's happened before. When we talk about how Israel responds, already the Israeli government, which is a far-right government, have made clear that they will institute a policy of collective punishment. The Defense Minister said, I've ordered a complete siege in the Gaza Strip. There will be no electricity, no food, no fuel. Everything is closed. We are fighting human animals and we act accordingly. That is the language of war crimes. It is illegal under international law to impose collective punishment on a people. 80%. I've let you speak, so you're going to respond. 80% of those who live in Gaza, which is an open-air prison, depend on humanitarian aid.
But you're not acknowledging Owen. You're not acknowledging Owen.
Margaret, I've let you speak at great length.
I tell you what I can't stand is that you're using the horrors that we've experienced in the last 3 days to ban.
50% of the population of the Gaza Strip are children, and those children are being bombed by a government which has said that we are fighting human animals and we act accordingly. Benjamin Netanyahu demanded the civilians of Gaza Strip leave. You cannot leave the Gaza Strip. It is under blockade by air, sea and land. Now 96%, please let me finish.
Yeah, I will, but
96%, because Margaret spoke at length, 96% of those who have died in the last 15 years are Palestinians. And we cannot talk about what's happened, because when I spoke to my Israeli friend who took that call, for him what he wants is this to never happen again, and that context for him was so important, because unless there is a lasting peace, which does mean ending the occupation and a policy of apartheid and ending the murder of Palestinian civilians, then this will never end.
Margaret.
Well, all I would say is that Owen is completely and utterly ignoring what
96%,
Okay.
please let me finish.
Yeah, I will, but
96%, because Margaret spoke at length, 96% of those who have died in the last 15 years are Palestinians. And we cannot talk about what's happened because, you know, when I spoke to my Israeli friend who took that call, for him, what he wants is this to never happen again. And that context for him was so important because unless there is a lasting peace, which does mean ending the occupation and a policy of apartheid and ending the murder of Palestinian civilians, then this will never end.
Margaret.
Well, all I would say is that Owen is completely and utterly ignoring what has happened over the last few days. You have ignored all,
Owen, just wait.
All you've talked about, Owen, is your obsession, the obsession with so many people around the issue around Palestine. It's been an obsession forever, and you should just think.
An obsession
think
forever.
At the moment, if you were an Israeli sitting there, if you'd had family, I mean, here I am. I'm sitting here, and the people I visited, probably, I don't know how many of them are still alive. Are you saying they have no right to defend themselves? Are you saying they have no right to peace? All you have argued is how I've never supported the Netanyahu government.
No.
I've always been critical of that. But at this moment in time, this is the most horrific. This is the most horrific occasion and you should condemn it. Do you even condemn it?
I just opened in the strongest possible terms condemning the atrocity.
But you don't think they have the right?
I'm sorry, but like the response just has to be, do you condemn the occupation? Do you condemn apartheid? And this whole finger pointing, we're on the right. That woman there is on the side of genocide. She's on Sky News, a major news organization in one of the Western powers that is lockstep behind the Israeli government as they commit genocide.
Living in New York and being, blocks away from ground zero and seeing the way that the United States government rushed into 2+ wars and attacked Afghanistan and then Iraq and whatnot, learning about Palestine, both inside the educational system and then through comrades and friends and Palestinians themselves has been part of my struggle. So I'm always, and my politicization. So I'm always, I've been there. And in 2008 and 9, there was a war on Gaza, 2014, a war on Gaza, 2021, a war on Gaza. Every, 5 or so years, there's always, Israel uses Gaza as a kind of a testing ground for all the new military weaponry that they've gotten from, thanks to U.S. taxpayer dollars. This time around, however, I have never experienced the direct personal attacks on myself, on my family, on calling me names as if I support terrorists and terrorism simply by saying the words occupation. So because, and this happens on social media, because I say I believe that the root cause of the amount of violence that we're seeing is an illegal occupation of Palestinian land, suddenly I support terrorism. That's right. I support the killing of civilians. Didn't say that ever. Didn't throw up like the, a Hamas flag or a sign or whatnot. I don't even know do they have a flag? Didn't do any of that, but no, suddenly, and these are people that I know, people are very on edge. And when I say people, let's be more explicit and specific about who I mean. I'm talking about liberal Zionists. I'm talking about people, as we used to call in our movements, and we still do, progressive until Palestine. Yes, I'm against the invasion of Iraq. I'm against the invasion of Afghanistan. I believe in sovereignty for all people, except when it comes to Israel-Palestine. And for whatever reason, I refuse to learn more. I refuse to make it less, not about religion. Instead, I've closed my mind and I've decided this is the issue that, no, I am okay with trampling of indigenous rights. I'm okay with ethnic cleansing. I'm okay because it's justified. And especially because the other opposing force is our Jews, right? It is a Jewish state, and I've been taught to believe that this state represents all Jews, and it is the is the pinnacle of Judaism, is the state of Israel. And I got some tough love for y'all. Tough love, all right? We're probably not going to be friends at the end of this. It's going to be rough. It's going to be rough for a while. But here's what I have to say. What are you for? What are you for? What do you want? What do you think is the solution right now? I say end the occupation. I'm very clear about where I stand on this issue. I say it with my full chest. Do you say with your full chest that you believe that the state of Israel should be carpet bombing the 2 million people sitting like ducks in the open air prison that is known as Gaza? Do you support that and say that with your whole chest? Because that is what's happening right now. And you should own that you believe that, because that is what the state of Israel is doing, claiming to represent all Israelis, claiming to represent all Jews, claiming to be on the side of peace. We must kill more civilians. So do you stand by that? What is your solution? Is it 3 days of bombing? Is it 5 days of bombing? Is it 1,000 people dead as we are now? Is it 2,000? Is it 5,000 people? Or is it the obliteration of Gaza as we know it, which is where the Israeli military is headed? What is it that you are proposing? You want to talk about peace processes? Let's talk about peace processes. You want to talk about who's made the peace process impossible? Let's talk about Israeli settlements expanding and expanding and expanding. How can you negotiate on changing terrain? How can you negotiate when consistently the people you are negotiating with are getting more and more and more and more weaponry? But instead, I'm the enemy. I'm being called the enemy because and not only the enemy, I'm being called anti-Semitic. I'm being called anti-Semitic, that I support the murder of babies. This is what's happening, guys. I'm being called, because I say occupation, I'm not sensitive to the death. I think the people who know about the occupation are very sensitive to the amount of death in that region on all the sides, right? You want me to call people terrorists? That's fine. I will call Hamas terrorists, but you have to accept that the state of Israel is a terrorist entity and the military is committing acts of terrorism. It might be sanitized because it's raining from the fucking skies and not coming from a guy in a mask. I get it. But it's terrorism nevertheless. Here's what I have to say. Let's do a corollary in the United States. We're Americans. Let's talk about it. Every single time there's a mass shooting, what do Republicans ask us to do? Thoughts and prayers. Thoughts and prayers. Wow. Yes, another AR-15, but wow, thoughts and prayers, you know? My heart goes out. What could have been done to prevent this tragedy? Nothing, actually. And what do we say? What do we liberals say time and again? We say, can we talk about gun control? Can we talk about the ease at which people are able to murder one another? Can we talk about the root causes? Can we talk about the ways that everywhere else they have mental illness, everywhere else there is depression, everywhere else, you know, teens are angsty and bullying happens, but only in America do we have the access to automatic weapons that murder so many people in such little amount of time with as soon as you turn 18 or online. No, we're told we're never allowed to talk about that. That is the same principle that liberal Zionists are imposing on the rest of us, to say you are anti-Semitic if you bring up the occupation at a time like this, and they clutch their fucking pearls. It now is not a time for pearls, people. Okay? It is not a time. I don't need to see more images coming out of Gaza. I don't need to cry for the fifth time today. I don't need you browbeating me, telling me that I'm fucking anti-Semitic. You know nothing of this conflict. And yes, I've reached out to all my Israeli friends. And yes, I care. And yes, I know people are dying. You have a choice to make. Which side are you on, dude? Who you standing with? What are you for? I'm for the end of the occupation in accordance with international law along 1967 borders. I am for ideally a two-state solution, but more and more, as many experts and people far smarter than me have said, a one-state solution that is diverse and democratic. Is that radical? I would argue that that would be a safer place for both Jews, Christians, Muslims, Palestinians, Israelis, and everybody. That's the way the land originally was back in the day. Colonialism is a hell of a fucking drug, isn't it? So what are you for? Do you stand with these war crimes? Stand with them. That's fine. We're not gonna be tight anymore, but you stand with the war crimes. You support them. Stand with them. Own that shit. Own your shit. Okay? If you're gonna own it, that's fine. But don't come at me. Don't point at me. It's not my posting. Don't point at all of the people pointing out the occupation. We are not your enemy. The enemy, obviously, are the people in power who have fucked this situation for decades, who have sat on their hands. Americans, Israeli leadership, and yeah, Palestinians and militants for sure. But you know nothing of the conflict if you put all of those people on equal footing. If you boil this down to religion.
It is the fact that there's this driving, relentless push to look only backward, as opposed to,
Only backward like 72 hours.
Right. Sorry. But like as if this isn't about to happen, right? As if there aren't about to be more murders. Like it's like watching like something and you have no control over it. And it is aiding exactly what you're saying. Let's keep watching.
Christopher Hitchens. Let's go to Cambridge, Maryland. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you very much. Mr. Hitchens, I have 3 direct questions, short questions for you, please. Do you feel that Israel has a right to exist within secure borders? Do you feel that the United States should intervene should Iran or Russia try to close the Straits of Hormuz? And would you seek relief from a 24-hour shoot-on-sight curfew from any quarter in which relief might be found? Thank you.
All right, thanks for the call.
Very good questions, and I think I know what you're trying to pin me down on. On the first, yes, I do, but I think the securely recognized borders should not allow for Israeli colonization or occupation of the territory of its neighbors, which is what it's doing now. The right to exist argument has been used now to the point where what it's going to mean is that the Israel you're talking about will include the annexed and illegally occupied West Bank. So the right to exist argument is going to rebound on those who use it unclearly and who don't say what they mean by Israel. It's very interesting, the Israeli government has never said where it thinks the borders of Israel really ought to be and what it would settle for. I think it would be an immense help if Israel's going to insist on the right to exist, if it tells us where it thinks Israel's boundaries should be. Every other country does do that.
I'd better give you the straight answer. I think Zionism, the idea of building a state of Jewish farmers on Arab land in the Middle East, is a stupid idea to begin with. I've always thought so. My mother wanted to go and be a Zionist immigrant at one point. I tried to talk her out of it. It's been a thing in my family. I think it's a bad idea. I think it's a messianic idea. I think it's a superstitious idea. And I think
so the idea of Israel's right to exist is
now that it's there,
has no play with you.
Many states are founded on injustices or foolishness and bad ideas.
And boundaries are drawn by all kinds of political.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that anyone can just come and evict or destroy them. And I'm not saying that, but I think I'd have to say so as not to seem shady.
Yeah.
I've always thought it's a silly, messianic, superstitious nationalist idea, and it's a waste of Judaism. And it guaranteed a quarrel with the Arabs because it meant we're going to take away from you what's most precious, your land, by trying to make Jews into peasants. Already a silly idea. That's not the way to rescue Central European Jewry, make them into farmers in Palestine. Guaranteed an injustice to the Arabs, which now anyone can see, and is now entering its 3rd, 4th generation. 4th generation of Palestinians brought up either in exile or dispossession or under occupation and humiliation. And now we know that something has to be done to address what is part of the original, let's not call it original sin, original misconception of the thing. So I've been writing in favor of Palestinian homeland all my life, and I'm no more, no less in favor of it than I was because of recent events.
And now the Bush administration is
in favor. It's a matter of principle.
And now the Bush administration is in favor of it.
Well, yes, they were edging towards it. It's a pity about the timing, because they were edging towards it before. I don't want it to look as if they did it as a concession. But it should be a matter of principle. If Jews born in Brooklyn have a right to a state in Palestine, then Palestinians born in Jerusalem have a right to a state in Palestine. Anyone who doesn't agree with that principle, I think, is suspect.
I think most people do.
They do, but but why in that case do we have the one and not the other? After all, it's America that pays for all this and arms the Israelis and is very much involved in it. If it's a matter of principle, then we should have witnessed to it a bit more forcibly than we did. Yeah.